There's a symbol hidden in the book of Revelation that scholars have been arguing about for 2,000 years. And what I'm about to show you will completely change how you read the entire Bible. Most people miss it. Churches don't talk about it. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it connects to something we discovered in my last video that makes this even more shocking. I'm about to reveal the one symbol that unlocks everything. Stay with me. But before we dive in, if you haven't watched my first video, The Hidden Message in Revelation Nobody Talks About, you need to go back and watch it after this one, because what we're about to uncover today builds directly on that hidden message. And when you connect both pieces, mind blown. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that certain symbols appear over and over in Revelation? The number 7, beasts, seals, trumpets. But there's one symbol that appears more than any other, and it's been staring us in the face this entire time. The symbol I'm talking about is the Lamb. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's just Jesus. We know that already. But hold on, because what the Lamb really represents goes so much deeper than you've ever been taught. The Lamb appears 28 times in Revelation. 28 times. More than any other image of Christ in the entire book. Not as a conquering king riding a white horse. That only happens once at the very end. Not as the Son of Man. That's only a few times. But as a lamb that was slain. But here's where it gets strange. This lamb, in Revelation 5, it has 7 horns and 7 eyes. In chapter 6, the Lamb opens the seals of judgment. In chapter 7, the Lamb is on the throne. By chapter 17, the Lamb is making war. And in chapter 21, the Lamb is the light of the new heaven and new earth. This isn't your Sunday school lamb. This is something far more powerful, far more terrifying, and far more beautiful. So why does John use this symbol? Why not just call Jesus King or Lord or Messiah? Because the Lamb represents the inversion of power. Listen carefully. In the ancient world, empires were built on the backs of lambs, the sacrifices. Rome sacrificed countless lives to maintain power. Kings demanded blood. The strong devoured the weak. But in Revelation, John shows us something revolutionary. The Lamb that was sacrificed is now on the throne. The victim becomes the victor. The slain becomes the sovereign. The weakness becomes the weapon. And this changes everything about how we read Revelation, because if you read Revelation as a book about God's violent revenge on the world, you've missed it. The Lamb doesn't defeat evil the way Rome defeated its enemies, with overwhelming force and brutality. The Lamb defeats evil through sacrifice, through suffering love, through absorbing violence rather than inflicting it. And here's the part that scholars have been debating for centuries. In Revelation 5:6, when John first sees the Lamb, it's described as looking as if it had been slain, not was slain in the past, but as if it had been slain, a present tense. The wounds are still there, still visible, still present. The resurrected Lamb still bears the marks of death. What does that mean? It means that even in glory, even in victory, even on the throne of heaven, the cost of redemption is never forgotten. The scars remain. The sacrifice is eternal. Now, here's where this connects to what we talked about in my first video about the hidden message. If you watched that video, you know we uncovered how Revelation is written in a symbolic code that early Christians understood, but that we often miss today. The Lamb is the key to that code. Every time you see violence in Revelation, the bowls of wrath, the trumpets of judgment, the plagues and destruction, you have to read them through the lens of the Lamb, not as God inflicting suffering on humanity, but as the Lamb absorbing the consequences of humanity's rebellion. Think about it. In chapter 6, when the Lamb opens the seals, what happens? War, famine, death, persecution. These aren't things God is doing to the world. These are things that happen when the world rejects the way of the Lamb. The seals don't show us God's anger. They show us what the world looks like without God's protection. They show us humanity choosing violence over peace, greed over generosity, power over love. And the Lamb simply allows it, opens the scroll, reveals the truth. But here's the beautiful part. All through Revelation, even as chaos unfolds, even as the world tears itself apart, we keep seeing the Lamb, standing, watching, present. The Lamb is always there. In chapter 7, when the multitude stands before the throne, they cry out, "Salvation belongs to our God and to the Lamb." In chapter 14, the 144,000 follow the Lamb wherever he goes. In chapter 19, the Lamb's wedding feast is prepared. And in chapter 22, the river of life flows from the throne of God and of the Lamb. The Lamb is not just a symbol of Jesus. The Lamb is the symbol of how God operates in the world. Not through domination, not through force, but through vulnerable, sacrificial, suffering love. But there's one more thing about this symbol that absolutely changes everything. Remember how I said the Lamb has 7 horns and 7 eyes? In ancient symbolism, horns represent power. 7 horns mean complete power, total authority. And 7 eyes represent complete wisdom, perfect knowledge. So John is showing us this. The slain Lamb has all power and all knowledge. The one who was weak enough to be killed has all the power in the universe. The one who was mocked and rejected has perfect understanding. This is the ultimate paradox. And it's why Revelation is so hard for us to understand. We live in a world that worships strength, that celebrates winning, that tells us power comes from dominating others. But Revelation shows us a Lamb on a throne. And if you're watching this and you feel weak, if you feel like you've been wounded, if you feel like the world has sacrificed you for its own gain, the symbol of the Lamb tells you your wounds do not disqualify you from glory. They are the pathway to it. The Lamb still has its scars, and so will you. But the scars become the source of light. In Revelation 21, John writes that the Lamb is the lamp. The wounds that brought death now bring light to all nations. So when you read Revelation, every single time you see violence, every time you see judgment, every time you see chaos, ask yourself, what does this look like through the eyes of the Lamb? Because the Lamb doesn't see enemies to destroy. The Lamb sees children to redeem. The Lamb doesn't see a world to condemn. The Lamb sees a creation to restore. And the methods of the Lamb are not the methods of empire. The weapons of the Lamb are not swords and chariots. The weapon of the Lamb is the cross. And in Revelation, John shows us that the cross didn't just defeat death 2,000 years ago. The cross is the eternal reality of how God defeats evil. Not with more violence, but with self-giving love. That's why this symbol changes everything. Because if God's ultimate power is revealed in the Lamb that was slain, then the path for us is the same. We don't overcome by being stronger, louder, more forceful than the world. We overcome by following the Lamb. By choosing sacrifice over selfishness, by choosing peace over revenge, by choosing love over hate, even when it costs us everything. Look, I know this is heavy. I know this challenges a lot of what we've been taught about Revelation, but I genuinely believe this is what John was trying to show us. And if this resonated with you, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now, because we're going deep into Revelation on this channel, and I promise you, every video will reveal something that makes you see Scripture in a completely new light. And seriously, if you haven't watched my first video, The Hidden Message in Revelation Nobody Talks About, stop everything and watch it next. That video lays the foundation for understanding the symbolic code of Revelation, and when you combine it with what we talked about today, you'll never read this book the same way again. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's your biggest question about Revelation? What symbol or image confuses you the most? Because I read every single comment, and your questions will shape the videos I make next. And if this video impacted you, share it. Send it to someone who's been struggling to understand Revelation. Send it to someone who feels like their wounds disqualify them from God's love. Because the message of the Lamb is that your scars can become your greatest source of light. The Lamb that was slain is worthy. And if you follow the Lamb, so are you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.